You're listening to Dare to Transform, where we find the vision, dedication, and motivation behind inspiring stories of transformation. This is part 2 of episode number 3, Learning to Fight and Find Your Way. I'm your host, Angela Harris, founder of Work of Heart, bringing you a Missing Link Technologies production. Picking up where we left off, here is part 2 of Dare to Transform with Nic Sulsky. So I'm gonna shift gears.
Shift it.
So we could probably talk for like 4 hours and record it, but
I could.
Don't
yes.
have that. You could, yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about how having a family, because you went there. So how has having a family impacted your entrepreneurial journey, your career, your work?
You know what? I mean, this is going to sound like an odd answer, but I don't think family has impacted my career or my work.
That's fair.
I mean, I'm married to an amazing woman who supports me and supports what I want to do. I've had as every entrepreneur knows or will know, there are ebbs and flows in your life.
Right.
And if you're not married to someone who can accept the fact that there's going to be ups, but there's going to be significant lows. I mean, I'll be completely candid, then you got a challenge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you don't have to have a family. You don't have to be married. No. I wanted a family very badly, and I was lucky enough to meet the woman of my dreams, who's an incredible, my best friend and all of that. And she completely supports me and has supported me throughout my journey. Having a daughter, I have a daughter who's almost 11. I mean, it's just fun. It's great. That's who I am.
Amazing,
I've always wanted to have a family. Yeah, it's incredible. So I mean, I think that having a family hasn't impacted my business life. I mean, it's made my life better because that's what I've wanted. Right. But because of who my wife is, especially because my 11-year, I mean, kids are going to support you if you
right.
let them watch screen. Let them watch screen, eat a little sugar. They're like, you can do whatever you want. I don't care.
Right.
But But if you have a partner in life, whether you're married or not, doesn't really matter, who can't handle that reality of what life is like with an entrepreneur, then ultimately either you have to look yourself in the mirror and change careers, or you have to acknowledge the fact that your relationship is going to have a lot of challenges.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what's odd, and I'll tangent to where the conversation can go to next, is it wasn't necessarily the family that's impacted my work or my work career. And but what's interesting is as I became as that startup that I had alluded to about merging fantasy and broadcast started literally 8 months after founding that startup, trying to get it built, I got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Right. So literally decided to become a bootstrap startup entrepreneur. I had a co-founder. We're building this company from scratch. Yep. And then all of a sudden I get hit with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And my daughter at that point, I mean, well, here's the family thing. And she was, I think, 8 months old at the time, or it was before one. So it was, or she may have just been one. It was just 2009. Yeah. So she was one. She was almost one. She was actually almost one. Yeah. So it was, that was a brain fuck. Right. And that was the thing with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that I've learned and I've grown to understand is the fact that it's something I'm going to have to live with forever. It's also not necessarily the kind of terrifying, like most aggressive form of cancer, knock on wood. Right. But when you're first hit with it was a life-shattering moment, right? I mean, and even though I find I think of myself as an extraordinarily strong person, that was a gut punch. Like I fainted. I have fainted a number of times in life. And they're both times. I mean, both times were in conjunction with that. The first time I got told that it was, and then I've been hit a couple times, or I've been hit 3 times.
Nic, when you found out that it was cancer, you fainted. Is that what you're?
Yeah, the first time I did, and then I got, then the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma came back 5 years or so after the first time I was diagnosed, and then when I was told that it had come back, I did faint again. So those are like, brain
That's
fuck.
crazy. Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
it is kind of crazy, but I mean, it's an emotional thing, right? I
Right.
mean, for me, it was literally that moment, that day, that
Mhm.
couple hours, and then it was like, okay, this is what I got to do, right?
Right.
So I'm not someone that hides in the corner and says, "Oh my God, oh my God." It's okay. What do I do? I mean, ultimately, the first
Right.
time I got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, it was an information overload. The treatment,
Right.
to be quite candid, it wasn't so bad. I had to have radiation once a day for 30 days. By the end, I was a little tired, but radiation's really, and it was in my groin area where basically I had a lump, and
Yeah.
doctors, because I had no other symptoms, they thought it was a hematoma. And anyway,
Okay.
it ended up being cancer.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had to have radiation. So the radiation actually wasn't that bad. By the end,
Yeah.
you're kind of a little bit tired, but nothing
Hmm.
too um, the reality there was, for me, it was learning about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and trying to change my lifestyle to try and prevent it from coming back again. So
Okay.
at that point, what I did was I had read a book called The China Study, did some research. The first thing for everyone out there whoever is scared that they may have an illness, or that don't go to Google, don't go to WebMD. Stay away from the goddamn
I
internet.
know, right?
So it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to resist that, but
Yeah.
don't. It's there's nothing but bad
Right.
There's nothing but fear that you
Right.
can get from the internet.
It's way
And
too much there.
yeah, and ultimately, I'm also very cognizant of the fact that the kind of the Western pharmaceutical business and
Hmm.
machine
Hmm.
drives a lot of our medical industry,
Right.
right?
And our
So
beliefs, right?
hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was kind of naive to it. And then
Yeah.
when I started really diving into food and nutrition and all that, my eyes started getting open to also like how the sugar lobby works and the milk lobby works and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Where it's just like, oh my
And
God,
Nick, did you jump into that? Like, did you dive into that the first time
yeah.
or the second time you were diagnosed? Yeah.
I dove into that the first time, but to be completely candid, I dove into it kind of the wrong way. I
Okay.
look back at it now, and I admittedly I read a couple things, and I clamped onto the first thing that
Okay.
sounded like it had a solution, which was I read a book called The China Study, and in
Okay.
the China Study, it basically it inferred, or um, it reflected on a study that was conducted in China that involved animal protein and
Okay.
rats.
Okay.
And what the thesis of that book was around, if eliminating animal protein, anything that comes from an animal from a diet could
Okay.
effectively kill cancer. And so that's what I did. I went full bore there. I took all animal protein out. I became a vegan, but
Hmm.
I replaced animal protein with a lot of the meatless, the meatless, and
Products and yeah.
the Eves shit and all that stuff. And I stopped eating refined sugar, but I
Okay.
took that into or no, sorry. I wasn't so worried about sugar, but I went with dairy. So I started eating like a lot of the sweets that had like evaporated cane juice and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that's where I went.
Yeah.
When I got hit again, I was lucky enough to be introduced to a naturopath who started opening my eyes to other things. And the most important
Mhm.
thing that she opened my eyes to was sugar. I mean,
Right.
cancer is on sugar.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, a cancer cell has 10 times the amount of insulin receptors as a normal cell.
Okay.
Cancer feeds on sugar, right?
Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of research and a lot of studies out there now that basically confirm that.
Hmm.
So it was after working with that naturopath the first time, um, it became pretty obvious to me that I messed up with my diet. And it
Right.
wasn't about animal protein, because you get a lot of good stuff from animal protein if it's clean, right?
Right.
So I eat a lot of grass fed. Fat is good for you, not bad for you. Good,
Right.
high quality fat is very, very, very good for you. So
Hmm.
it's grass fed, and it's portion size, but it's all about sugar, right?
Right.
So it's and lots of vegetables, so
Yeah.
greens. So I mean, people like to refer to it as kind of like a paleo diet, but ultimately, and you could say I eat what the cavemen eat, but
Right.
cavemen don't have what we have now. But ultimately, it's all about eliminating sugar from the diet and
Okay.
exercise. Exercise is also extremely
Right.
important, because for me, it's all about like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I mean, it's effectively inflammation. I want to fight inflammation and I want to keep the cancer away.
Right.
So your body also processes, and it's about reducing the types of foods that you eat that also your body converts into sugar. So like carbs, right? So breads, potatoes. I haven't had a slice of bread in many years. Because your body converts that into sugar, right?
Right.
So, but exercise, if you want your body to basically break down and convert the foods that you eat in the sugars, there's sugar and everything, but you want your body to break down the fruit sugar, the whatever it is, as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. So if you exercise, I mean, they say 17 hours, but I mean, that's kind of unrealistic. But I mean, I exercise every day, right? Exercise every day.
Yeah. So talk to me about that a little bit. I mean, I know you went into it a little bit at Work of Heart. That was really kind of the first time that you went into, detail about your routine and the your lifestyle choices, if you will. But talk to me a little bit about what your daily routine looks like. So either morning,
it looks like this.
You drink a lot of water. Yeah.
No, I mean, my routine is pretty simple. I mean, it's funny. Like I drink green juice every day. So every morning, and I say green juice. I don't juice things because ultimately you want the fiber. So it's expensive, but get a Vitamix. Vitamix is the only thing out there that literally beats the shit out of the food you put in it, because you don't want things juiced because then you lose the fiber, right?
Right.
So a lot of ginger. Ginger's a great anti-inflammatory. Lemon to cut the ginger. Spinach, flax oil, chia. Then there's like green powders out there. Try and find the green powders that don't have stevia, because stevia, even though it's a natural sugar, it's still sugar. It's chemical. Sugar. It's not good for you. You can get unflavored. Just like as an example, drink your coffee black. You don't need milk and sugar, people. Like, just drink it black. Like, God.
Yeah.
It's not that hard of a change, especially the sugar, right? But yeah, for the green juice. So basically, spinach, and I drink that, make that every day. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to kind of peel and cut the ginger, because I use a lot of ginger, like palm size amount of ginger.
Wow.
But it's an anti-inflammatory, so it's good.
Right.
I eat the same thing for breakfast every morning, just because breakfasts are very hard, because, you don't eat cereal. I don't eat oatmeal. I don't eat that. So, I make my own stuff. It's almond flours become my best friend. So I make like almond flour pancakes, which aren't very tasty, but, frozen blueberries. So I don't eat, I eat berries, and like mandarin orange or clementine oranges, but any high glycemic fruits like bananas, pineapple, melon, I don't touch that stuff. Citrus is okay. So like, frozen blueberries and almond flour stuff and almond butter, right? Like, whatever. Lunches, the thing is, salads, soups, and then the high quality proteins. Like, that's my day. But I exercise every day, typically, before dinner. I mean, that's kind of it, right?
So tell me, I mean, you're saying this, and you're saying it like it's so easy, and you're like, you do this and you do this and this, right? But I like,
it's not easy.
Commend you. It's
not easy.
This is what I want to get to. I deal with it myself every day. Like, I'm trying to make the right choices. But what would you say to someone who is just starting out, and not necessarily someone with cancer, but someone who is trying to take back control of their health and of their life? Because, I mean, like I said, whether you have cancer or not, your health, your food choices, exercise, all of those things have a huge impact on your mental health and on your success, like, in life, whether it's your career, your happiness, whatever. So my question is, what would you say to someone who's just starting out?
I would say, don't go cold turkey. Don't try and be too aggressive. Take it slow.
Yeah.
It is hard, super hard. And my back's up against the wall. I mean, the hardest thing for me is booze. Like, I love drinking.
Yeah.
And I've been able to pick and choose the different types of alcohol that I drink, but ultimately it's still, sometimes when I feel like having a drink, I have to sit back and think, okay. And I do drink, I do drink too much. I mean, straight up. I mean, not too much as a human. Well, probably too much as a human too. But that's the rugby player in me, I guess, right?
Right.
But that being said, I have that. Oh, well, I got I got cancer. Oh yeah, I better not. Right. So I do have that. I mean, it
you have that
sounds weird. I have that like
thing.
C card that I play internally, and I also play it in the world, right? Like whenever
we've talked
like
about that. Yeah.
I'll play that card. Hey, I got it. I might as well use it, right?
Right.
So I mean, I think the only advice that I would give to people is take it slow. Don't try and cold turkey anything. Moderation. It's funny. Our slogan at Mount A, My Frosh Week, was moderation is the key. Moderation is the key, right? Like start and start, just scaling things back, right? Start eating a little bit more vegetables. Start maybe try your coffee without sugar, right? Instead of having, 2 slices of bread for your sandwich, maybe try 1 slice open face.
Yeah.
Just start slow and start finding foods that you experiment with things. Like maybe there are certain foods like quinoa. Like if you haven't had quinoa before, try it, man. It's pretty good, right? And there's ways that you can flavor it up or add it to things. Maybe instead of having meat 5 days a week, maybe have meat 3 days a week and have fish a couple times a week. And maybe yes, it's expensive. If you can afford it, try doing some grass-fed stuff instead of the it's more expensive straight up, but like I spend my money on food. That's
well,
where...
and I think it's I think that's important advice. I mean, I think that it's like when you're starting out, I've done, I've tried doing the detoxes. I think I've like had some like pretty epic fails. Like
we all have
4 hours on,
on
a 21-day one. But I think it's like, it's figuring out what makes sense for you. But I also think it's important to have a goal in mind, like, or have a feeling or something that's kind of driving you. I mean, in your case, it's like you said, it's the C word, and you've got that kind of back here, on your shoulder, if you will. But I think that's the key, what I see with a lot of people. And like I said, I struggle with it too, and try and fix this thing. Mental health is going well, but I'm not sleeping, or, I'm not eating right, or I'm like, trying to cut sugar, and then I eat more of this thing over here. So I think you're right. Moderation is the key to this for sure.
Yeah. And talk to other people that have done it. Right. I mean, the one thing that I will say the internet is great for, it's recipes, right? Like, and this kind of thing, like where I default and say, if it's a health issue, do not go to the internet. When it comes to diet and nutrition, there are great resources online, to figure out good things to eat and things like that. But it is not easy. I mean, I've had over 10 years of practice now. So, it's less challenging for me. And I'm also very much a creature of habit. I like doing the same things. I like things a certain way. I mean, a little OCD, I guess. But I mean, ultimately, that allows me to be a little bit more flexible in my kind of...
Listen, I mean, that could be a whole other session, but, one thing that I've seen consistently with, high achievers, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but high achievers, is reducing the number of decisions that you make in a day, right? So whether it's what you eat, or, what you wear, or how your schedule looks, whatever. So, but okay, so we do need to wrap up.
Got it.
But I am going to ask you a couple of questions that I like to ask everyone. What or who has been your greatest inspiration?
Man.
You can say me. I'm just joking.
Wow, Scrange, that you might be. Wow, that is a really good question. And for your listeners, I asked you not to send me the questions because I wanted to be more fresh. Yes. This is one of those questions that ultimately I have so many inspirations in so many realms of my life that it's really hard. I mean, to be, yeah, you know what? It's funny. Like one of my recent inspirations, it's going to sound a little bit odd, is I'm a huge music guy and I love live music. There's a musician. His name is Josh Homme. Josh Homme is the lead singer of a band named Queens of the Stone Age. He was the guitarist for a band called Caius. Which is a great band. He started Queens of the Stone Age, but then he took Queens of the Stone Age and he's done like 3 or 4 different musical, Eagles of Death Metal. he was in Them Crooked Vultures with Dave Grohl and John Paul Jones, and he's done, he's just done a lot of different things. So I really, in the type of person he is and how he comes out, I've been inspired by him. But I mean, I'm inspired by so many things. There's not, there's authors that have inspired me because they write it. Like Kurt Vonnegut used to be a big inspiration for me. I loved the way that he wrote. Tom Robbins was a big inspiration for me. Kevin Smith, as I alluded to years and years ago, was a very big inspiration for me. Obviously I can talk about athletes,
right,
till the cows come home. Like Jim Abbott. I don't know if you remember Jim Abbott. He was a pitcher for back then. It was the California Angels or the Anaheim Angels. He had one arm. So he only had one arm. He had a stump. So he became a Major League Baseball player, and he was able to become a pitcher and figure out how to put his glove while he was winding up. Like things like that.
I think I did see a documentary.
Yeah, I mean, back in the 80s, right? So that's the kind of stuff that's always inspired me. But as far as one individual goes, I mean, the easy answer is my father, right? I mean, he's the one guy that's, well, actually, I should say, there's in my entire life, I've had one like mentor in my life was my uncle. My uncle, he's now a federal Superior Court judge in Quebec, but he was a great athlete. He was a great musician. He became a lawyer. And he's just a great guy, and he's always been kind of like the fulcrum of my life because I literally have known him my entire life. So but there's not really one person. I mean, and ultimately I think successful entrepreneurs can also, they pick and choose different things from different people, right? So
absolutely, I love that. See, you have no lack of inspiration, clearly.
Yeah, or lack of ability to keep answers.
Exactly.
Good. Right. I'm terrible, man.
I love it. Okay, so the only other question I do want to know: do you have a favorite book? I won't say what is your favorite book.
Oh, I have a favorite book.
I love that.
I have a favorite book, and I literally read this book every year. I read a lot of books, but the two books that I read for fun. I don't read business books. I read stuff online, but I love spy books. Okay. Like I love spy books and sci-fi books. Okay. So the greatest book I've ever read, and I will send you a copy if you like sci-fi at all. It's a book called Old Man's War by an author named John Scalzi. It is, well, it's random. I have a good friend. I grew up in Los Angeles, and one of my best friends growing up in Los Angeles at one point was the assistant to the head of Warner Brothers, the studio. And one of her jobs was reading great books and getting movies made out of those books. Right. So one day she sent me an email to say, I just read this incredible book. You got to read it. And I read it. And literally, I think I read it on my honeymoon. Okay. No, it wasn't my honeymoon. No, it wasn't my honeymoon, but regardless. But I got my wife to read it also. It is the best sci-fi book ever, and I won't want to say it is so much fun. It's about the future where you can only join the army after you're 75 years old. And the like intergalactic kind of, they call it the Colonial Union Army. And you're only 75 years old, you basically can enter the army. It's just and I won't say anything more. It is, and I think it is being made into a movie now, finally. Okay, I was going to say. It is so, and this author, John Scalzi, I've read everything that he's written because he's got a really great kind of sense of things. But Old Man's War by John Scalzi, I'm going to send you a copy of it. Amazing. Awesome.
I also will say I find it very interesting that you don't read any business books. I think that is very telling.
It might be bad for me. To be honest, a lot of people say, "Oh, you got to read this," Phil Knight's book, and you got to read this, you got to read that. I'm like, but I mean, there's snippets online that you can read, and ultimately, when I read, mainly it's like when I'm going to bed because we don't have TV in our bedroom or anything. I like to read to bed. Me either. And I like to shut I need to shut my brain off at some point during the day, right? So That's awesome. I might be a better businessman if I read some of those books, but I also talk to lots of people and they give me their advice, which usually is like, oh, I read this in the Phil Knight book. It's like, good, don't have to read that book now. Ding. Yep. Ding. But I'm sure it's
give me the summary.
Exactly. Thank you for the
Well, Nick, this has been very entertaining, as I knew that it would be, and I always love talking to you. I'm sure. I feel like I'll probably have you back on the show at some point.
Anytime, considering I always spend 45 minutes talking about the beginning, ramp up the important stuff. So that's like
it's all good. It's all good. You know what? That's
we'll outline it next time.
I'll be like, you have 2 minutes and go.
I can do that.
All good. All good.
All
okay.
right. Thank you, Scran.
So,
A
Nic,
true pleasure.
thank you. Yeah. So thank you so much, Nic, for joining us today and sharing your story. I'm Angela Harris, and this has been episode number 3 of Dare to Transform, a Missing Link Technologies podcast in collaboration with Work of Heart. Have an amazing day. We hope you dare to transform.